All right, thanks, Megan, and welcome to Hannity this Friday night. A lot of news tonight. Tonight, Hillary Clinton and her partner in crime, Barack Obama, they have hit a shameful and absolutely despicable new low in American politics. This is a story the rest of the media, as Megan was saying, will not tell you about, but we will tonight. For now, the second day in a row, the president of the United States, while campaigning for Hillary Rodham Clinton, accused Donald Trump of something that is outright false without any evidence, that he supports the KKK. This is the president of the United States.
If you accept the support of Klan sympathizers, if you don't denounce them right away because you're kind of not sure, well, that's what you're going to do when you're in office.
Good week. All right, that's the president of the United States going as deep in the gutter as anybody can get, playing racial politics. Why? To scare African-American voters into voting for a candidate and a party that has a long history of rampant racism. Now, Project Veritas this week, they put out a disturbing new undercover video that no one else in the Clinton-loving media will dare to show you. That's because in it, you will see a major Democratic donor making racist comments about African-Americans. Now, we've told you Fox hasn't independently verified it. You can see the content for yourself. It is beyond shocking. Watch this.
But you think, like, as like a black man, you think that they would vote for
the Holocaust?
Oh, it depends on, well,
You know the Sandra Commando?
yes. Depends on, well,
You know the Sandra Commando?
yes.
Jewish guards who in effect helped murder Jews in the camp so they could live alone.
Yet again today, we reached out to the Clinton campaign and Benjamin Barber for a comment. Guess what? We didn't hear back. Now, instead of spewing vile rhetoric at Donald Trump, shouldn't the president condemn that video from his party? He won't, because it would then upend the Democrats' long campaign to falsely smear Republicans. Like when Vice President Joe Biden, you may remember this.
Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Every 4 years, these Democrats relentlessly are pandering to minority voters. Here's Hillary Clinton using a phony Southern accent. She changes her tone, her pitch, her cadence, her entire speaking approach while speaking to African Americans. Watch this.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy.
All right, so if the president and Hillary Clinton, if they want to play the race card and paint this utterly false narrative that Donald Trump supports the KKK, Hillary Clinton's own mentor was someone who actually was in the Ku Klux Klan. Here's what Hillary Clinton said about the former Klansman, former Democratic Senator Robert KKK Byrd after he died.
Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility. From my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. I admired his tireless advocacy for his West Virginia constituents. As Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel.
Eloquence, nobility, my mentor. All right, how can Hillary Clinton praise somebody like that? Keep in mind, back in 2001, on Tony Snow's show, Fox News Sunday, Byrd said this.
There are white. I've seen a lot of white in my time. I'm going to use that word. We just need to work together to make our country a better country.
There's Hillary's mentor. Also, Hillary has also said very offensive and racist things about African Americans. Remember when she called young black men super predators? Take a look.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Now, all of these examples are clearly shocking, but they're not surprising. And the reason why are the Democrats trying to play the race card against Donald Trump? Is it because Hillary Clinton has nothing to run on? Stop for 1 second. Hillary Clinton has been in public service 40 years of her life. Can you think of 3 specific accomplishments that have improved the lives of the American people? Because I can't. She is the single most corrupt, the single most dishonest candidate, the single most self-aggrandizing and enriching candidate to ever seek the presidency. Now think about this. If she wins on Tuesday, Clinton could be indicted while in office. She will spend all of her time certainly fighting off any type of indictment or criminal charges against her. Well, that will create in this country a massive constitutional crisis. Now, we also have new polling that suggests Americans think this will happen. According to our latest Fox News poll, 47% of likely voters say it is very or somewhat likely that the FBI review of Clinton's emails will lead to criminal charges. And a brand new McClatchy poll just out tonight shows a total of 83% of likely voters believe that Clinton has done something wrong. I'll interpret illegal. We also now are learning that the FBI has opened investigations into Clinton's private email server and into the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is the private server that FBI agents say there is a 99% chance, because of her recklessness, her unwillingness to obey the law, a 99% chance that up to 5 foreign intelligence agencies hacked into and stole her emails. Now, that's the private server that contained classified, top secret, and even the highest classification special access program information on that server. Remember, it was a mom and pop shop in a bathroom closet? This all despite Hillary Clinton saying repeatedly that it didn't. There are also the 33,000 emails that her team, remember, they didn't wipe it with a cloth. They used bleach bit. In other words, they acid washed it. So as Trey Gowdy said, God couldn't find it if he wanted to. And that was to permanently erase after Hillary was served with a congressional subpoena to preserve all those emails. And now, of course, thanks to WikiLeaks, we also know her own aides questioned if Hillary Clinton actually turned over all of the work-related emails. And right now, tonight, CBS News is reporting that the FBI has found new emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop, not duplicates. As for the Clinton Foundation, the FBI is investigating the Clintons' pay-to-play practices, and sources in the FBI are saying an avalanche of new evidence is coming in every day. Now, WikiLeaks exposed the Clintons' own aide that called it Bill Clinton, Inc. Remember, they were broke when they left the White House. How did they get $200+ million? This is a scheme directly tied to the foundation the former president used to line his pockets with all of that money. And remember, the AP reported that of all the people, individuals that saw Hillary when she was Secretary of State, well, 55% non-government people, they were people that donated to the Clinton Foundation or pledged to donate to the Clinton Foundation. Pretty outrageous any way you look at it. Anyway, not to mention the tens of thousands of millions of dollars, rather, the Clinton Foundation has accepted. Remember countries that treat women, gays, lesbians, Christians, and Jews horribly? Countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Brunei, Qatar, Oman, Algeria. Did Hillary ever criticize these countries? Women are told how to dress. They can't drive in Saudi Arabia. They can't go to work or school without a man's permission. And Qatar, did you know that marital rape was legal? Marital beatings are legal of women? Did you know in Saudi Arabia, gays and lesbians are killed? Christians and Jews, you can't build a temple or a Christian church. They're persecuted. Anyway, joining us now from Ted's Montana Grill in Illinois, the author of now the bestseller Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. For 2 days in a row now, they're playing the race card and using the Klan. What does that tell you?
It tells you that they're desperate and they're terrified. You can always measure how much trouble they're in by the intensity of their attack and the degree of their desperation. And I think it's pretty clear now, as you just pointed out, you know, when you have 87% of the country that thinks you did something wrong, you got an uphill climb to get to be president. When you have over half the country that thinks you might have a criminal indictment, it gets pretty tough to get those last votes.
Yeah, by the way, I hear the thousands that have been waiting online, and you've been signing books all night. We appreciate you taking time, Mr. Speaker. All right, let's say, God forbid, she wins the presidency. Will the country be paralyzed? Will she spend all of her waking hours fighting off potential indictment, fighting with or meeting with lawyers? Will any work in this country get done, or will we literally be spinning our wheels with no progress whatsoever?
Oh, I think that the amount of evidence that's coming out day after day after day, she will drown in investigations, FBI investigations. The Internal Revenue Service in Dallas is investigating the entire legality of the Clinton Foundation. You're going to have investigations from both the House and Senate. And every day we learn, as you pointed out a minute ago, we learn new things. And all of them are bad. And so I just think, you know, the evidence, as you and I were talking about on radio today, the very fact that the Constitution prohibits office holders or their spouses from taking the kind of money they were taking from Qatar and from Saudi Arabia and from Morocco and from Russia. It's just clear illegality. And I think that what the Clintons are doing is they're finally forcing us into a national conversation about whether or not we're going to be a country where the rule of law matters and a country where even the powerful can't commit felonies and get away with it. And I think this is a very decisive moment. And because it's so obvious, I think that's why you're going to see the last 3 days absolute hysterical attacks from the president, from Secretary Clinton and others, because I think they sense it slipping away.
The president absolutely lost it today. We'll play that video a little bit later in the program on top of using the KKK analogy. You know, one of the things I like to point out, Mr. Speaker, is, all right, how are we better off than we were 8 years ago? Well, I look at numbers. You're a numbers guy, you're a historian, but we now have the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. We have now 95 million Americans out of the labor force. We now have 51-year low in the home ownership rate, the worst recovery since the 40s, 13 million more Americans that are on food stamps, 8 million more Americans that are in poverty. We've doubled the national debt. 1 in 5 American families don't have a single family member working. In the black community, 93% voted for Obama. Well, if you look at the increase, 58% increase black Americans on food stamps, 20% increase black Americans out of the labor force. Will this shift? Will this change?
Well, I think that it will change if you get Donald Trump. It's not going to change if you keep the same policies, the same personalities, the same approaches. The tragedy of many of America's inner cities, Detroit, where 9% of the students can read in the 3rd grade, Baltimore, where 13% of the students can pass their 8th grade science and math test. This cripples people economically, leaves them without a viable future, and creates many of the problems that we see bubbling up because people are in despair. At the same time, I cannot overstate the depth of corruption that we are beginning to learn about from WikiLeaks and from other things, including the FBI investigations and the court-ordered release of various emails. I mean, the courts have played a major role here in exposing just how bad this is, and the total effect, which is growing by the day. And I can't quite imagine with 650,000 emails on Anthony Weiner's computer, how many new things we're going to learn over the next couple months.
Well,
so
Uma
I think
Abedin signed
were Hillary to win. Yeah.
She signed a separation agreement saying she had turned all of those over under penalty of law. Every email, and if she has classified emails, and there was a report tonight that in fact there was, every email on that server would represent a separate count. It would seem Uma Abedin might have a very quick path to jail along with her husband, unless of course they start cooperating.
Well, remember, 43 people were indicted, tried, or convicted in the Watergate. It wasn't just Richard Nixon, but there were a whole circle of people, because you get sucked into these things, and then you get sucked into the cover-up, and then you get sucked into lying to the FBI. All these things are felonies. And I think just Doug Band's memo, the 12-page memo, outlining how Clinton Inc. operates and the way they set the whole thing up to enrich themselves, that memo alone would give any prosecutor a roadmap for a trial.
All right, we got to take a break. Oh, isn't it nice? I guess Jay-Z and Beyonce are doing a concert, and that's the same Jay-Z. I think I see a lot of N-words in his song. Isn't that true? Yeah, quite a bit. And we have some of the lyrics. Well, isn't that nice of Hillary to hang out with people that use that wonderful language? We have more with Newt Gingrich right after the break. We'll look at the polls when we get back. Brand new Fox polls just released tonight show the race has tightened. I mean, it is razor thin with days, and the momentum going to Donald Trump. Plus, WikiLeaks continue to be a major headache for Team Clinton. Ed Henry has been combing through these emails all week and all day. We'll have an update and a full report also tonight.
Listen up. Everybody, hey, listen up. Hey, I told you to be focused.
President absolutely loses it at a rally in North Carolina today. All of that plus Sheriff David Clark. We have a busy news Friday night for you straight ahead. And welcome back to to Hannity. Brand new Fox News national polls just released tonight show the race is tightening. In the four-way presidential race, Hillary Clinton is up by only 2 points, 45-43. But in the two-way presidential race, it is a one-point race, 46-45. We continue with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, I could give you all the numbers all day long. Do they even matter at this point?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think we understand what's happening with the voting public. You know, for example, that African-American turnout is down from what it was for Obama, and that's why you're getting the kind of savage demagoguery that you saw today. You know that younger people are very turned off by Hillary and all of this illegality, and that she's not going to get all of the Sanders voters that people expected. And you also know that in state after state, Republicans are doing very well in the early balloting and in the absentee balloting. In almost every state, they're doing better than they did in 2012. And in a number of the states, the Democrats are doing substantially worse. I think in North Carolina, for example, I think the gap is maybe 100 or 150,000 worse for the Democrats than it was back in 2012. So, and by the way, Reince Priebus deserves a lot of credit, because they invested at the Republican National Committee a lot of resources in building a genuine ground game that could match the labor unions and turnout votes. And I think we're seeing in a lot of states, it's having a big impact.
I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours today, and the person's like, well, probably everybody's made up their mind by now. And I said, no. History shows there are a lot of people that are going to be walking into that voting booth on Tuesday that will be deciding then, based on what happens on Saturday and Sunday and Monday, maybe even early Tuesday. Do you agree with that?
That's right. Well, not only that, but I was talking today with several key people who pointed out that in 1980, Reagan does a 30-minute television speech on Monday night, and people, the undecideds, are still making up their mind Monday night. And because he looks and feels presidential, the last people who weren't decided, they break for Reagan by an enormous margin. He and Carter are almost tied a week out, and starting actually yesterday, starting on Thursday, they all began to break towards Reagan. And on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, his margin just kept going up and up.
Is that what you see happening now?
Until finally he won.
Is that what you see happening in Pennsylvania, Michigan, New Hampshire, and Colorado?
You know, I was looking at numbers today that were startling. Michigan was out of play 2 weeks ago. Michigan's now in play. Pennsylvania, I think we have 2 polls now that show both Toomey and Trump are tied.
Yep.
You know, in New Hampshire, Trump's beginning to pull away, and Senator Ayotte is winning by a substantial margin. And by the way, Young has now come through in Indiana and is consolidating his lead over Birch Bayh, who, remember, Senator Bayh, the former senator, had a huge lead in the summertime, and the Democrats were counting that as a pickup. That's now clearly going to stay Republican. Ron Johnson, I think, is now in a statistical tie, according to the Marquette University poll, which is very, very respected in Wisconsin. So I see a lot of things, and as you know, I've been in, Clifton and I were in Georgia, and then I went on to Missouri and Colorado and Nevada. She and I are here tonight in Illinois. Tomorrow we'll be in Wisconsin. As we go around everywhere we've been, you see an increasing seriousness and increasing intensity for Trump. I have people walk up to me all over the place and say to me, in fact, I went to the movies the other night. I actually took 3 hours off, went to the movie.
Wow, I'm
and
shocked.
The lady who was selling tickets, the lady who was selling tickets said to me, Trump has to win. Now,
well, I agree with her.
It's that kind of you know,
I
but
see
it's
it
that
everywhere.
kind of everywhere you go passion. I don't have anybody running. I did have 2 people actually tell me that they were for Hillary.
And by the way, I do not interrupt you. Whoever told you that tonight is not true. All right. So Hillary was on stage.
There are people in Naperville who are going to love that comment because they know who they were and they know that they told me.
Okay. Jay-Z and Beyonce on stage with Hillary tonight. The rapper repeatedly used the N-word, dropped the F-bomb, you know, with his F with me, you know I've got it, and other songs. You turned into the mother effer greatest. If you're feeling like a pimp N-word, go brush your shoulders off, and I can keep going. And there's Hillary on stage, you know, and here she's so offended by Donald Trump, and there she's praising Beyonce and Jay-Z. What is your reaction to that? Hypocrisy?
Well, look, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm not sure it's hypocrisy. I think she may forget. She's been very forgetful over the years.
Yeah,
and
she
I think
has.
maybe she forgets who they are.
She didn't remember
So
that she
it
was
could just
briefed.
be that
Yeah.
this could be a sign of the concussion, that she doesn't actually know who they are. And she thinks it's so nice that they're hanging out with her.
All right, you
know,
can't
I'm
make
giving
me
you the
laugh.
benefit
Stop
of the doubt.
making me laugh when I'm really serious. We're 4 days away, and you're messing around. There's no time to mess around.
No, there's nobody better to mess with than Hillary Clinton because she is a crook. She ought to be in jail, and we should not take her seriously as a potential president because she's never going to be the president of the United States.
From your lips to God's ears, it would be this country will be paralyzed and more divided, and a constitutional crisis would await us. Mr. Speaker, good to see you. Thank you for taking time, and my best to the people in Illinois that you're with. Coming up, WikiLeaks continues to release damning emails related to the Clinton campaign. Ed Henry, he's been reading it all day as a full report, also tonight. President Obama loses it at a rally. Now, if I was Jay-Z hanging out with Hillary, he loses his shh at a rally. That's how I'd say it. We'll ask Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark to respond to all of that and more tonight on Hannity. Welcome back to Hannity. While campaigning for Hillary Clinton earlier today, the president completely lost his cool. This is awesome. Take a look.
Listen up. Hey, everybody. Everybody. Hey. Hey. I told you to be focused, and you're not focused right now. Listen to what I'm saying. Hold up. Hold up. Everybody sit down and be quiet for a second. Now, listen up. I'm serious. Listen up. You've got an older gentleman who is supporting his candidate. He's not doing nothing. You don't have to worry about him. You should. This is what I mean about folks not being focused.
Joining us now with reaction, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. What's your reaction to that, Sheriff? Both the president
Sean,
and
I
Hillary with
watched that
Jay-Z dropping the N-word and F-word.
Yeah, let me start with President Obama. I watched that rally live this afternoon. I thought it was very embarrassing for him that he had to tell people, you know, about 19 times, hey, listen up, quiet, stop, sit down, and they just totally ignored him. Look, the Democrats are in panic mode right now. I said this months ago that they faced a black vote deficiency dilemma, Mrs. Bill Clinton. She was not going to get the turnout that Barack Obama got in 2008, and he increased that in 2012. I said that that could be the variable here that sinks her campaign. Look, Donald Trump is doing pretty good with the black vote. One of the polls I saw, he was getting 20%, which is more than any Republican has gotten in several decades. So they're in panic mode. Usually what the Democrats will do is they'll come out and tell blacks that if you vote for Republican, they'll take your benefits, your welfare away. They're not even going there. They're going straight to, you know, the KKK, analogy that was used, that Donald Trump supports the KKK. He'll have the KKK over to the White House, when in fact, President Obama has had the black equivalent of the KKK, Black Lives Matter. He has hosted them at the White House numerous times.
So all of this race baiting, because that's what it is, because Donald Trump doesn't support the KKK, and everybody knows it. But I think you're right. I think it shows desperation, and all early voting indicators show that Hillary Clinton is not getting anywhere near the women vote that they need to win, or the black vote that they need to win, or the youth vote. By the way, if you were Bernie Sanders supporters and now you know that Hillary conspired with the DNC, cheated on debates, I don't think I'd be so inclined to support the nominee if I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter.
No, there's no momentum. There's no energy. Look, I've been all across this country on behalf of Donald Trump, and the Donald Trump supporters are energized. They're motivated. They cannot wait. Those that have participated in early voting, which is why you see many people on the right, the GOP, Republicans, people identify as Republicans, conservatives, taking advantage of early voting, highly energized, and it's going to be a big turnout on November 8th as well. But one of the reasons why these demographics that they're going after, Mrs. Bill Clinton going after the women vote, going after the minority, why she's not doing well, because she's not a likable person and she's not emotionally connected. Look, if Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States, his appeal to the black community is going to mean, to me anyway, it's going to mean that he's going to be the best thing that has happened to the black community since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah. Let me ask, when they play the race card as they do, and then Hillary jumps, she calls a former Klansman her mentor. Bill Clinton's mentor was J. William Fulbright, a known segregationist. The Democratic Party, people like Al Gore's father, Robert Byrd, Hillary's mentor, they weren't there for the Civil Rights Act. They weren't there for the Voting Rights Act. They were filibustering. And then they claim this mantle that they are helping the black community. Since Obama's been president, we doubled the debt, 58% increase, black Americans on food stamps, 20% increase, black Americans out of the labor force. I'll put up the home ownership rate for black Americans. You know, it's higher than it's ever been, meaning the lack of home ownership. You know, I'm just thinking, what hypocrisy? Why do they still get the majority of votes when I would argue they're not better off under these Democratic policies? And as Donald Trump said, every 4 years they come knocking on the door, asking, demanding votes. What have they gotten for it? Their educational system, violence in inner cities. It's the worst in the country. But the vote for the Democrats still goes on. Why?
Well, because black people have been separated from their history. They've been hoodwinked by the Democrats. Look, it was the Democrats that tried to uphold the institution of slavery, and it took a Republican president, Lincoln, to come along and end that ugly institution. And as you indicated, it was the Democrats that stood in the way of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act as well. And it took Lyndon Johnson had to go out and get Republican members of Congress in order to get that stuff passed. But look, I'm telling you right now, Sean, black people are beginning to open their eyes. That's why I was so ecstatic when Donald Trump reached out. And he didn't just say it once. And he didn't just say, hey, you're being exploited, your vote's being taken advantage of. He told them what was possible for them and what should be done for them in their community. Better schools, safer communities, and more jobs. And that's what's appealing to blacks. And that's why I don't think this playing this race politics that Obama and the Democrats are engaged in, I really don't think it's going to help the turnout this year.
A new deal for black Americans. I think that's a great idea. Well needed.
Help
We've
is on
got
the
to
way.
fix the nearly 4,000 people dead in Chicago since Obama's been president, shot, majority African American. 3,000 people shot this year alone. Almost the majority of African American. It's disgraceful. What has the president done to stop it? Nothing. All right, Sheriff, we love you. Good to see you. And we're only almost 3 days away. An hour and a half. We'll be 3 days away from Election Day. And coming up, WikiLeaks continues to dump damning new emails. Ed Henry's on the case with the latest revelations. Plus, we'll also get reaction from Pat Goodell, Mike Huckabee, and much more tonight on Hannity. Welcome back to Hannity. WikiLeaks continues to release damning emails from the Clinton campaign. Our own Ed Henry, he's been combing through it all week, all day. I mean, you must be WikiLeaked out. How are you?
Good to see you, Sean. You know, it's now over 47,000 of John Podesta's emails that are out there. WikiLeaks has said they're going to do 50,000 by the election, so obviously there are more coming today. New ones about the email scandal, about the Clinton Foundation, and also potential hypocrisy on Hillary Clinton's part over pay equity. First, on the email scandal, Neera Tanden has come up a lot, a liberal activist who's a frequent pen pal of Podesta's, and she's questioned Hillary Clinton's political instincts. Today, she raised questions in a 2015 email about Brian Pagliano. Remember, he pled the fifth over the email scandal before the special Benghazi committee. And Tanden says in one email that Brian is someone who, quote, retrieved all our emails in a previous year. She might be referring, it appears from the context, to the 2008 campaigns. So it's raising questions about whether Pagliano, Hillary Clinton's IT specialist, was involved with the Clintons much sooner. In terms of the email scandal as well, there was an email exchange between Colin Powell and Cheryl Mills when the email scandal first broke, and it appeared that the Clintons were going to try and say, look, Colin Powell had the same setup. Yes, as Secretary of State, he used a personal email account, but did not have a server. So look at this email where basically Powell threatens the Clintons through Cheryl Mills and says, I haven't been asked nor said a word about HRC and won't unless you all start it. So making it clear that he would fire back if they tried to drag him into the email scandal. Then on the Clinton Foundation, you've heard the name Doug Bann before, and you were talking about him before with that 12-page memo. There's a new email out today where one of Bann's associates was saying that while they tried to put new conflict of interest rules, and you see Bann there, in place at the Clinton Foundation in 2011, one of Bann's associates said, look, if you're going to do that, you're going to have serious problems of conflict of interest for Bill Clinton because he was taking speech money, personal gifts as well as consulting contracts from some of the Clinton Foundation donors. That, according to Band and his associate, insiders, not critics, on the outside. And they also revealed that some of Bill Clinton's one-on-one meetings with various foundation donors cost those donors $100,000 to $140,000 just to get a one-on-one with Bill Clinton. And then I mentioned pay equity. What's interesting about that issue is that you had an email pop up where one of Hillary Clinton's advisors was basically saying, wait a second, do we have a problem on pay equity? Because she's out there on the stump all the time talking about how women have to make the same or more than men. And this advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign was saying, wait a second, we're not even sure. Do women make as much as men do? So it's interesting that she's out on the stump saying, look, everybody else needs to do this. And insiders in some of these WikiLeaks emails were saying they weren't even sure whether the Clinton campaign was living by that same standard, Sean.
It's fascinating reading. I honestly, I'm staying up at night reading it, so it shows what a loser I am. But thank you so much.
You got better things to do.
No, that's what I do. I read this.
Apparently not.
All right, Ed, thank you. Joining us now with reaction, former 2016 GOP presidential candidate, former governor Mike Huckabee, Fox News contributor Pat Caddell. Governor, as I talk to you, I'm going to put up just the WikiLeaks revelation specific to the Clinton server up, and then we'll go to the new revelations today. This is obvious law-breaking. I'd use the word bribery, cover-up, destruction of materials. It actually seems to now make sense that they had the private server because they didn't want Freedom of Information Act request or congressional oversight because of all the money they're making.
Well, it was a very good way for them to cover up their tracks. I've said this week that the big difference between the Clintons and the Sopranos were that the Sopranos didn't leave an email trail, and the Clintons didn't think they were going to either. But the fact is, the WikiLeaks exposure has revealed what really amounts, Sean, to nothing less than a criminal enterprise. And the shocking thing is, people are going to vote for someone on Tuesday who is either a person who believes that the job of president is serving the public or sucking the life out of the public. This is why Hillary Clinton cannot be president, because they have used every government agency and all the powers to do two things: protect themselves from being accountable to the laws that the rest of us have to live by, and then to use those powers for self-enrichment and for going after their political enemies. Imagine, if you will, Hillary Clinton having
Governor,
the power of the IRS and all these agencies.
They were making enough money. It's inexplicable to me. Why? Did they need that much more money?
Well, Sean, you got to remember who they're hanging out with. They're hanging around with the George Soroses. They're hanging around with all the billionaires who have so much money that they'd like to be part of that. And, to make $153 million as they did on speeches between 2001 and 2015, that's a pretty good gig. Bill Clinton gets $100,000 just to have a meeting with somebody.
Is it worth the kind of, let me bring Pat in here. If she's elected, you were just telling me before we came on the air, this is a disaster for this country.
Well, I think the problem is I went through Watergate. I was the youngest person on Richard Nixon's enemies list. I think I may be the oldest on Hillary's at the moment, but leaving that aside, I think that, what we learn is that presidency was consumed when Watergate exploded. This has already exploded. We're talking about someone, and I think American people, if they think about it, will have a huge impact, because if the day she's elected, this crisis starts. It will not go away. It's not going away unless she pardons herself, or the president, if Obama pardons her, which would blow the country wide open.
So we will be more divided than ever before.
And nothing will happen.
Will be paralyzed.
And nothing will happen. The country in a moment of crisis. So that's really the choice. This will all be about her and the Clintons. And what I agree with the governor. I mean, my God, what you're seeing here is a criminal enterprise, really. And we all know the foundation was always much worse. And it is about money, and it's about many things. But you know what, most of all, the country is tired of corruption. And the word that is not allowed to be spoken inside the Beltway and by the political elites is corruption. In the country, you've got over 80-some% of people believe that they're corrupt.
Exit question for both of you. I'll start with you, Pat. Who's going to win this election?
I think at the moment, let me just say, we're in motion, and I think it's moving Trump's way. I lived through 1980.
You think it's the same?
And I think it could be
Governor, who's going to win?
Donald Trump is going to win. It's not going to be as close as people think, and I've said that since the summer when his poll numbers were low.
We got to take a break
today.
Thank you both. We'll continue. In Vegas. All right, voters head to the polls in 4 days. Joining us now is former advisor to the UK Prime Minister David Cameron, Steve Hilton, and Trump campaign senior advisor A.J. Delgado. 1 year ago today, you reminded me, you said what?
I said on this show a year ago that Trump would go all the way and win the presidency. So it's kind of weird to be sitting here.
What do you think all these polls? You getting nervous or you feel confident?
I'm absolutely confident, but we do need everybody, all your millions of viewers watching, to make sure they go out and vote. Let's not forget the 2000 election came down to 537 votes. So everybody needs to get out there, get their friends and family out there this weekend, Monday, Tuesday.
All right, Steve, what's your take? I know a lot of people are saying, well, maybe this is like Brexit. Maybe there's a group of people, they don't want to tell the media they're voting for Trump. Or maybe, you know, there was an 8-9 point swing in Great Britain. Do you see similarities here? Do you expect that here?
I think there's certainly similarities. I think that you've got all that shaming going on, the moral shaming of people in the media establishment and the elite saying that if you support Trump just as if you supported Brexit, then you're a bigot.